I want to move on a little bit to the team that I have liked this entire offseason, and it pains me as somebody who grew up in Minnesota, somebody who doesn't like cheese, in large part because I don't like the taste, but I also, philosophically didn't like it growing up. And that's the Green Bay Packers. So the Green Bay Packers right now, when you look at them in the marketplace, the NFC North, if you look at Pinnacle Sportsbook, the Lions are plus 133, the favorite. The Vikings are plus 272. Again, this when we say plus X, it means you spend $100, you get X if they win the division, for example. The Packers are at plus 365. Now, this number has gone from 5-1 to 4-1, and in Pinnacle, which is the sharpest sports book, I think, Circa, Pinnacle, Chris, those sharper ones in the world, plus 365 for the Bears, actually. I'm sorry, and then the Packers on Pinnacle are actually the least favorite team to win the NFC North at plus 418. So they're actually, this is a better number than where you can get at some of the other books as well. Previously 5-1, so they have gotten some money here. Win total 7.5. This is the first time they've been lined with a win total of less than 500 since 2009, I believe. So this is a team that is being doubted substantially, and I think that they're being underrated, and a few different reasons why. I think, this was a great one. Sean Donahue, pour one out for the Rashawn Gary 25-1 sack leader ticket. I had 50-1 on Defensive Player of the Year. I thought he had at least had a chance. Obviously, he tore his ACL mid last year and it didn't work, but he was very productive prior to that. When I look at the Packers, I see a lot of markers of a team that could outperform expectations. The first of which is I think their head coach is underrated. When Matt LaFleur took over Green Bay in 2019, they had a below 500 season in 2017 because of an Aaron Rodgers injury. 2018, Rodgers played the whole year, but he was banged up. If you remember that Sunday night game where he came back, sort of magically from an injury, but also, he came back and beat up on a Bears team, after trailing 20-0, a Bears team that would end up going 12-4. He came back in that game. The next week they tie against Minnesota. They have some games here. McCarthy kind of had some bad fourth down decisions and things like that in that season. They go 6-9-1, get McCarthy fired. The following year they go 13-3 under LaFleur. It was a little bit of a Mickey Mouse 13-3. I know my friend Aaron Nagler will tell me to shut the hell up when I say that, but it was like it was a close win team. And Aaron Rodgers was still not necessarily as productive or efficient as he had been in the past. And so the Packers in 2020 traded up for Jordan Love in round 1. And we all know what happened after that. Aaron Rodgers colored between the lines for the next 2 years, won 2 MVPs. Packers won 13 games in both those years, especially 2020. That was a very good Packers team that won 13 games. No Super Bowls, no conference titles, nothing like that, but still great teams. And then last year kind of fell apart. Rodgers had been doing a lot of extracurriculars and all that kind of stuff, and it didn't work out. They went 8-9. They could have made the playoffs, but the Lions swept them, including beating them on Week 18 in Lambeau to keep them out of the playoffs. And obviously Aaron Rodgers is gone, and now Jordan Love is their quarterback. And Matt LaFleur, to me, that whole timeline to me screams, this is a great player in Aaron Rodgers. But it also screams to me, this is a coach that has gotten a lot out of Aaron Rodgers. Again, Rodgers had played so poorly in 18 and 19 that they had drafted his replacement. And Matt LaFleur was able to get Aaron Rodgers to play within the confines of that offense well enough for them to be very good in 2 years. And I think that is being underrated in the marketplace. I think the other part is, and I'm going to talk about Jordan Love in a second because I want to sort of give a long diatribe into why, again, my self-scouting and my own evaluation of players leads me to sort of fade an opinion I had in the past. The defense for the Packers. So going into last season, 2022, they were coming off a 2021 season where Rasul Douglas had 6 interceptions, very good off the scrap heap. Devondre Campbell, similarly uncoveted player, got first team All-Pro. Thomas Dimitrov, my co-host for the show on Mondays and Wednesdays in the fall, drafted Devondre Campbell, very good player, but kind of miscast at the end in Atlanta, miscast in Arizona, goes to Green Bay, wins, a first-team All-Pro, as I said. Rashawn Gary, then they go and draft Devontae Wyatt. They draft Quay Walker, both out of Georgia. And everybody's saying, well, look, this Packers team might take a step back offensively without Devontae Adams. But they're going to be great defensively. And that didn't materialize. In fact, Joe Barry gets a lot of flack for how that didn't work out. But you could see some of the seeds of what was going to be my bullish case here, which is that Walker played really well down the stretch. Wyatt is, a young player who's going to be playing next to Kenny Clark. I think sometimes we are a year ahead on defenses. And I think that that's where the Packers are going to have more success this year than they had a season ago, is on that defensive side of the ball. So I think Matt LaFleur, good defense, not great defense, but a good enough defense, especially in the NFC, to have some success. And then when I look at Jordan Love is the type of player that historically my numbers hated. And I'm going to pull up an article from Pro Football Focus that I wrote in 2020 where I said, 2020 NFL draft, why there isn't value in taking Jordan Love late in the first round. And there's a number of different ways to look at that. Jordan Love was basically like a college football average quarterback in 2019. He was much better at 18, but once you took away some of the structures around him, he was not particularly good in 2019. And yet, he has a lot of the markers, a few different markers of the type of quarterback that I miss on. And going back to Josh Allen, going back to Justin Herbert, like there's a famous tweet out there. Like, I have a service that deletes tweets after a long time because that's a professional thing. But there's a tweet that I like to screenshot. And when I give talks to colleges or something like that, I always say, look, like we're in the get it right 55% of the time business, not get it right 100% of the time business. And I watching the Wisconsin-Oregon Rose Bowl in 2019 said, I don't think Justin Herbert's a first-round quarterback. I was, of course, wrong. But when you looked at his production and you looked at that of Jordan Love, it was very similarly declining from the early stages of their college career to their final year. And I thought that was a bad thing. Ultimately, Herbert has proved me wrong. He's got robo quarterback type talent. He's got, I think really good process ability. I think he obviously is one of the top, however you want to put it, top 8 at the very least quarterbacks in the NFL. Most people would say top 5. He's a very good quarterback. And the statistics would have told you, look, there's a guy that throws underneath. He's a guy that the offense is helping out, all this kind of stuff in the college data that was clearly, not something that was telling us his true talent to the point at the very beginning of the show. And I think Jordan Love has similar things. Now, we watched Jordan Love play. He's very clearly got the arm talent. He's very clearly physically gifted. But when I watch him, I see a guy that's going to color between the lines. And the biggest tension when I watch the Green Bay Packers over the past 3 seasons is how well they can play when Aaron Rodgers submitted to the offense and hit his back foot and threw the ball on time. And when especially in 2020, when Robert Tonyan was there and when obviously Adams was at his best, but they were running a lot of play action. He was really hitting that back foot, throwing the ball. That offense was very good. And, over time, even in 21, even though he won the MVP, I still think obviously his efficiency and all that went down. And then 2022 was sort of where he just didn't trust the offense. And I sort of think about he's an artist, whereas I think Jordan Love will color between the lines. And I think when you look at Love and the situation he's in, he's got a modest contract for a player who, is a first round pick and that kind of thing. He didn't, like I said, it's a modest contract insofar as they basically gave him the 5th-year option with less guarantees. So he's got something to prove. And I don't think he's going to prove that thing by being the next coming of Aaron Rodgers. I think he's going to prove that thing the same way Daniel Jones proved it last year, or the same way, that a guy like Kirk Cousins proved it last year, where if the guy colors between the lines with the talent that Christian Watson has, Luke Musgrave, the nephew of Bill Musgrave, the former offensive coordinator for a few different offenses in the NFL, former backup quarterback, as well as won a Super Bowl with the Niners. Romeo Doubs, obviously Aaron Jones, a guy that we really like in fantasy, A.J. Dillon, who is kind of the Leroy Horde of that offense. I think that Jordan Love can be an effective enough passer in the structure of that offense for the Packers to exceed market expectations this year. What do I mean? I said this last week. I think it's a decent bet that the Packers will make the playoffs. I think it's a decent bet that they'll win the division, at least at those numbers. For, like I said, plus 418. So you bet $100, you win 418 if they were to win the division, and go over 7.5 wins. I think that, I think that is the place if you're looking for undervalued teams in the NFL. We talked about this last week when I was doing some predictions. There's not really an undervalued team in the AFC. You can think about the Broncos, but I don't know. The prices are kind of converging there. In the NFC, it's a lot of like bad teams slash, teams that are better than bad, but everybody knows are that way, like the Philadelphia Eagles, the San Francisco 49ers, Dallas Cowboys, even like Detroit and Seattle. And so I think you got to look towards the teams where they make you they give you the icks a little bit, like some of those teams. And the Packers are a team that give me the icks a little bit, but there's so much there at the market prices that they have where I think that they could possibly be a spunky team this year. So again, and this is something where the young analysts that watch the show, obviously one thing I always talk about, and it's going to be a big part of my book, football analytics and Python and R, is mentorship. The biggest mentorship thing I can give a young analyst, especially in the analytics community, is learn where you're weak and be able to pivot off of where you're weak. So again, I made this article way back in the day that I didn't think Jordan Love was worth the first round pick. And after all these years, I actually think he is undervalued in the marketplace. So again, that's my Green Bay Packers love. That's kind of what I want to talk about a little bit there. Sean Donahue, a good story here. He said the Athletic Football Show, so that's Nate Tice and Robert Mays, said that Rodgers is openly rebelling against that offense last year. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And like Aaron Rodgers can do that because he's got all the money. And Green Bay was, after he won 2 MVPs, Green Bay was incredibly desperate to sort of have him in the fold. But that is not what the luxury Jordan Love has. And what I like about Jordan Love is that he's the desperate one here. And when you have Matt LaFleur who knows what he's doing, very good in-game play caller, a very good everything in-game decision for Matt LaFleur last year. I think he had the best win probability added on 4th downs other than Nick Sirianni last year in the NFL. The timeout issue is Rodgers, of course. Like I think Matt LaFleur is very underrated. I think he'll do some things with Jordan Love this year that are going to be positive. And as a result, I think the Packers are going to surprise people. They are 2.5-point underdogs week 1 in Chicago. That game, if you've watched Twitter all offseason, is going to be an all-out brawl between 2 fan bases that hate each other and 2 teams that both think they're the next up-and-coming team. I have a feeling that one of those 2 teams is going to be good. And if I had to put my money on it, I'd say Green Bay.